Hello and welcome to another lap guide for the iRacing Camel GT series. This week we're at Barber Motorsports Park. Here's the lap first. All right, so lap time there's a 1:12:6:29. We have afternoon weather for this week, so I'm running default weather as usual. The track temp's 107 Fahrenheit for that. There's the optimal sectors for that. So let me talk a little bit about the setup before we go into this in more detail. I'm running a 9-wing in the qualifying and the race setup that I'm sharing here. I think that you could get away with running less wing as the weather cools a bit, but bear in mind that you'll want to adjust your fuel usage to compensate for that. The estimated laps for the race is about 37, maybe even 36, but about 37 is what I was estimating. And there's even a potential if we find even more time and if we're in real cool weather without traffic that I think we could even see 38 laps, although not likely. I've actually added enough fuel based on my own usage for 38 laps still, just in case for that. So, but test that and adjust that based on your own fuel usage for the 45-minute races. So let's go ahead and go into more detail here, turn by turn. All right, so coming up to turn one, what I'm looking for here for turn one, wrong lap. Let's go back to turn one of this lap. What I'm looking for turn one is the one board, and there's going to be just a real quick brake and sharp turn in just at or just past that. So there's going to be a quick downshift into fourth gear. There's the 40% or so brake, and then a very sharp turn in. What you're aiming to do is get as close to the curbing here on the left without hitting that. It definitely will unsettle the car too much, and you'll end up running off into the across the grass and further if you hit that at a bad angle. So just get in as close to that curbing as you can without touching that. And then as you're coming down the hill here, as the weight is kind of shifted forward, I think your mind should be getting back to throttle by about the base of the hill here, and to get the weight shifted back so that you can now kind of balance the car a bit and get aggressive back on throttle coming off the corner. So, and that's all in fourth gear coming off the corner. So let's go ahead and play that through at speed. So coming around turns 2 and 3, or the carousel, what you really wanted to do is just carry a lot of speed around the carousel without overslowing the car too much. So there's going to be a fair bit of trail braking going on, and you'll see a downshift into second, and then actually down into third, and then into second. But a trail brake, just kind of modulating a little bit between brake and throttle to kind of keep the speed and the balance of the car where I'd like it. A little bit of throttle here between turn 2 and 3 to kind of help keep the speed up. What I actually like to do here is I like to let the car run out wide just a bit, just to make sure I'm not overslowing the car, but also to kind of help angle it in and time my run off the corner, because you really want an early throttle coming off the corner here to make sure that you can get as much speed as you can. The straightaway here is a good passing opportunity. If you come into the carousel with just a little bit too much speed, you're going to find yourself running wide in a hurry. Now that actually isn't always too costly because you can actually get a little bit of an earlier throttle run into the carousel, or I'm sorry, turn 3 of the carousel. And it's actually not too bad. There's actually a few different lines you can take here for passing opportunities, and it's a very wide road for that purpose. But I think that where mistakes will happen through the carousel here, it actually will lead to a lot of passing opportunities. And so you want to make sure that you're getting a good run off this corner to capitalize on those passing opportunities here. So you'll see that I'm getting a nice early throttle all the way back to about this point where I'm getting on throttle. I'm going to kind of come off a bit and then back on to ensure that I can get the car as close to this curbing as I can, and then I can commit back to full throttle pretty quickly from this point out, and that's going to be full throttle all the way through. Letting the car track all the way out wide to this curbing is a good idea just to ensure stability, and then cutting across and up close to this curbing here. You can touch these curbs without too much trouble. They actually don't unsettle the car too much, but I just prefer to try to keep it smooth, so I try to avoid those. So let's go ahead and play through these at speed. All right, so the hairpin, turn 5. So turn 5 is actually kind of an awkward hairpin, if you can even call it that. I believe that's what it's called officially, but it's a fairly wide corner at the mid-corner point. So let's just take a quick look at that. So in the mid-corner point, you can see how wide that is, and you really don't want to apex kind of too early and get to throttle too early. You want to carry a lot of speed down into the corner, and if anything, your apex is probably right around here. You'll notice how I kind of angle the car in early. So from the braking point, I'm already kind of turning the car inward. I want to carry a lot of speed in, trail brake into the corner, and now get on the throttle and kind of ease it around the last part of the corner, cut across to kind of straighten out the exit, and straightening it up close to this curb, and then I kind of aim up toward the middle of the track there. So let's go back to the braking point to look at this in a little bit more detail from that point. So the two board is right at or just past the two board is my threshold brake point. So I'll get on the brakes just a bit before that, and there's the threshold point of about 75% or so brake just past the 2, and this is where I'll begin angling the car inward. I'm going to go straight down to second gear and then just do a fair bit of trail braking into the corner, getting pretty close to the curbing here, but of course letting the car run around. And this is kind of that imaginary apex here where I'm kind of angling around this part of the corner here so that I can straighten out up along this pointed of the curb here. So still on throttle. You're not going to be committing to full throttle for a bit. So 50-60% throttle here as you kind of come around the latter part of the corner, and then you'll see as you straighten out close to the curb, you can now commit back to full throttle. On the exit of the corner, I just found that the middle of the road was just a little less bumpy than if you come up tighter on the left-hand side. If you stay tight to the left, there's two different points where the car kind of takes a pretty big bounce, and so the middle has actually got that one big bounce here, and it's just slightly smoother than coming up tight down the left. Not that that makes a huge difference, although that could throw off your shift a little bit. So be careful with that. So let's play this through at speed. All right, so around turn 6 and up to turn 7. So coming into turn 7, I'll start to brake and make sure that I can reach, I think it's around 30 or 40% brake. Yeah, about 40% brake right before the curbing. And then I'll downshift into third. Now, the way I come into this corner is to just aim to get as close to the curbing onto the right, and then straighten out and actually just carry right up over the curbing here to the left. It's actually safer. I made sure that the car wasn't taking any unnecessary damage. As long as you're straightened out here and the car is settled, the weight of the car is now settled because you now straightened out here in your braking zone. It's actually pretty safe than trying to kind of guide the car around it, which can actually throw the car in a bit of weight transfer and actually send you into a spin as you go from right to left to right. So I actually just straightened this out, and I checked the front of the car. I didn't see any visual damage happening whatsoever, so it seemed to be pretty safe to do so. So downshift into first gear here, and carrying a bit of brake, just kind of light 20-30% brake all the way down to the final corner here, and now getting back onto throttle here just as I come off the corner there. It was probably just a little late. I think I actually carried a little too much speed in this particular example. I found myself braking a little longer than typical and actually ended up getting on throttle just a little later than usual. So maybe bear that in mind. My target for getting back to throttle is just past this steeper part of the curbing here. And coming off the corner, be careful because if you're going to use first gear. Now you could actually use second if you're uncomfortable using first. I use first just because I feel I can get off the corner a little quicker that way, but it does come with the risk of potential spin. So as you're still turning the wheel pretty sharply here, 50% or so throttle is safe. Unwind your steering, get up into second, and then aim to the left-hand side as you straighten out in second gear. And now you can commit to full throttle all the way through the rest of the exit of the corner. So let's play this through at speed. All right, so coming into the S's you can take at full throttle, other than just maybe the brief lift to shift up into fifth gear. But I'll try to shift into fifth gear just before coming into the first corner of the S's. So there's the shift up there into fifth. Now the first curbing is actually more dangerous than the second. If you come into this curbing and hit this as you're kind of turning in, it can actually send you into a spin pretty quickly. So avoid the first curbing, get as close to that as you can, and then you're gonna actually have a pretty sharp and quick turn in to the right here. And don't worry actually about using any of them. You can actually get up on this curbing a little bit to the right without too much trouble, and it's relatively safe. I like to keep it smooth and try to avoid it, just because it throughout the course of a race, as you have increased tire wear and dust and debris or anything that might potentially be kicked up on the track there, I guess could become a little bit more slippery. And so I try to practice avoid hitting that, but you actually can safely use some of this curbing here on the right without any trouble there. If you feel like you might be running a little bit wide, then you may have to lift just as you come across the corner here to avoid coming up into the grass here. This exit curbing comes up real quickly, and you can find yourself in danger of going up into the grass there on the exit. And so you may find yourself, if you just slightly miss your line, just having to lift just a bit to avoid running wide there. And unfortunately, you're gonna sacrifice your exit speed a little bit if that happens. So try to identify that as early as you can as you kind of cut in to the second corner here, lifting right here just to make sure you can get close to this curbing, and then getting back to full throttle all the way out here is a good idea to make sure that you're not sacrificing your exit speed. So let's play this through at speed. All right, so turns 12 and 13, I think this is called the tunnel. As you turn in, this is a little bit of a blind, well, it is a blind corner. You can't see your curve or your apex here in the first part of the tunnel here. So I turned in just slightly early, and you'll notice that I did clip the curbing here on the left a little bit, and there's not too much trouble with doing that, but I try to avoid that. I actually try to turn in just slightly later. It is another quick, sharp turn in, and like I say, it's a blind corner, so it's one of those corners that's going to take repetition and practice to get that line right. So a turn-in point might be just closer to the midway point in the curbing here to the right. I turn just a little bit before that. So closer to that midpoint might be a bit safer. You can carry quite a bit of speed. I actually don't downshift into fourth until in between the first and the second corner here in the tunnel. So you'll see me downshift down into fourth right here as I've kind of straightened the car out. And there's going to be a bit of braking in between. So turning in at full throttle, lifting off throttle a bit while turning in, coming off and then braking at about 30-40% or so. And then you can angle in, and you can use the curbing here on the right. It's pretty smooth. But if you use too much too early, that could send you off a bit of an awkward line on exit. You may find yourself having to lift to avoid going into the grass. And you really want to be back to full throttle by the time you reach the curbing here to the left. So you don't want to have to lift to avoid that. Again, you're going to be losing some speed on the exit for that mistake. So let's play this through at speed. All right, so coming down into 14, you can take this pretty aggressively. Car compresses nicely at the bottom of the hill, and you've got a lot of downforce. Use the curbing here to the right, come all the way up to the grass, and you're going to lift and slightly tap the brakes as you get toward the bottom of the hill here, just to avoid carrying too much speed off the corner, because turn 15 is going to come up real quickly here with the amount of speed that you can carry down through this corner. So you want to be kind of gradual with how you set up your braking point into turn 15. So what I actually tend to do is, like, coming across the curbing here, is I'll actually lift and then maybe just start to cut my speed a little bit, help get the car balanced a bit. I'm back to throttle where I can now straighten out toward the braking zone, which is now kind of pointed toward the curbing here to the left. You can see it coming up now, just barely in your vision there. And it's going to be about a 30-40% brake. And then turning in before reaching the maybe at or just before the midpoint in the road here. And start to turn in, downshift into second. You'll be trail braking a bit. You want to get pretty close to this curbing. I used a little more of it than I typically do. I like to just kind of angle in close to that. And again, get the car over to the right, pretty close to the curbing here, to set up your exit off the final turn. So down in second here, getting as close to the curbing here on the exit, and then committing to full throttle by the time you reach the curbing. And there I am, just before the curbing there. Went a little wide, a little bit of a bump there on the exit of the curbing, but that was all right. So let's play this through at speed. Let's come back just a bit. All right, so there's a lap of Barber Motorsports Park. Hope you found it helpful, and talk to you later.